I'm Richard Burton from the Richard Burton Art Centre. I'm a watercolourist on the Yorkshire coast. Welcome to everybody. What I'm doing today is another plein air painting session, this time from the majestic Filey Brigg, from the country park on the Filey Brigg, which is on the Yorkshire coast, just down from Flamberhead. If you look across, and I'll show you some beautiful footage where you can see Flamberhead, Bempton Cliffs, and then it comes down the sweep of the Filey Bay into Filey Town. You've got the wonderful yacht club and the view down into the town. Absolutely amazing view. We're going to talk about today. Okay, so this is the view looking over Filey Brigg, and you can see the wonderful light on the water as we go over towards the far distance, which is Flamberhead. As you can see, there's a wonderful blue in the sky and the sea, and there's a real reflective feel, which gives you that sort of almost Mediterranean feel for something which effectively is the North Sea. Today, we're going to really pick out the view looking from the cliff top, looking across the wonderful bay towards the town with the cobble landing, and trying to pick up the atmosphere of an evening light. As you can see, the light is dropping, the sun is dropping behind the brig itself, and it's casting those shadows, which were going to be quite an important part in this painting as we try and capture the mood and atmosphere of this gentle evening scene. So I'm going to set this easel up and we'll get into the painting. Okay, so we're now on with the drawing. We're looking at a vertical composition with probably a 1/3 sky, 2/3 earth and sea. And I'm going to just keep the sketching relatively simple, but I've got that sweep of the bay, and I'm wanting to ensure that I get the perspective and the size and proportions of everything right, particularly around the boats in the foreground. I have a little bit of detail there to ensure that leads my eye into the further distance of the town. The town is going to be suggestive, mainly because we're going to do a lot of painting and drawing with the brush to ensure that we get the light on the town and we capture that mood and atmosphere, which is going to be so important. Now, kicking off with the painting, we're going to start with the sky, which is going to be on a moist surface. I'm going to apply Prussian blue with a little bit of cobalt blue, and I'm going to drop that down into the sky, leaving some white for the clouds. And as I sort of work my way through the painting, I'm going to aim to get those clouds in, which are going to be a little bit of purple, probably alizarin crimson, and a little bit of yellow ochre, just to take the purple off it and just subdue it slightly. So I'm just going to push it about, use a bit of a tissue as well, just to lift off and soften some of the edges. Now I'm trying to capture the distance. Distance got quite a lot of light on it, and it's quite vibrant, so I'm wanting to try and capture that with some lovely wonderful greens, and the greens are going to be sort of raw sienna, yellow ochre, and with a little bit of lemon yellow, just to sort of give it a bit of sparkle. And into that I'm going to drop a little bit of purple and a little bit of green through using Prussian blue. Just let them blend a little bit as we come through the painting. Now I'm going to drop some greens into the town itself, just to capture those sort of majestic trees, and then work into the distant cliffs, which are going to be more of a purple and red really in those, just to try and give that feeling of light on the clay cliffs. Moving on for the distant cliffs, I'm now looking at trying to give those initial washes to the greens that work my way from the sort of cobble landing round into the foreground. And that's got a range of colours I'm seeing there, some greens, some reds, some ochres. So there's a real mix in there. So I'm trying to convey that, but also making them stronger as I come into the foreground. So it has a bit of punch in the immediate foreground that will just sort of give some sharpness to the painting, and hopefully will give a bit of balance when we get further into the other washes. Now for a real exciting part, which is going to be the sea. That's going to be a really signature part of it. It really sets the mood. We've got to capture that diffused wash, and you've got that diffused change of colour. So what I'm going to do, with a blue in the distance, which is going to be sort of cobalt blue with a touch of Prussian blue on a moist surface, and then just bring that down with a bead of colour, making sure that I've got plenty of water in there, and I'm going to bring that colour down. I'm going to transition it as I come through by adding some purple, such as magenta and alizarin crimson, and then as I come further forward, I'm going to change it because I can see that sort of sparkling green coming out of the sea, which has got that extra bit of energy in there, and I'm going to sort of add a bit of yellow ochre into that mix. And then I've also got that hint of shadow coming across, so I'm going to add in some Prussian blue just to give that sort of feel. So I'm now going to work to the distant. I'm going to put those distant shadows, trying to capture that feeling of those sort of rolling hills in the distance beyond the cliff top, and then work through there. It's all a case of sort of building in those middle tones, and I'm going to work right through the painting with those, so that I've got an initial wash and these mid tones in place. So I'm now working my way through the picture again, coming in, getting the beach in, sort of work down the beach, which is sort of alizarin crimson and a bit of raw sienna, really, a combination of the two. Bring that through, and then I'm going to start putting the initial washes on the clubhouse, and then obviously on the area of the yacht club, and get all those sort of undercolours in place. So the key here is really to get rid of all the white paper and just leave that white that's going to give that sparkle, that's going to provide that highlight in that stage. So now we're into the sort of next stage of a painting, really, where I'm looking at putting the darks in, starting to build the darks, concentrating the foreground area, and then I'm going to put the signature colours. In this case, it's going to be those blues in the boats and that sort of orange boat on the right-hand side, just to sort of set the scene for the essentially all this foreground area. So I take my time, gradually sort of work these colours in, and add a bit of shade as I go along into a sort of little bit of some moist surface, so it just diffuses these colours as I put them in. So now I'm going to let that dry in the foreground. I'm going to work back up the page into the town and the cliffs area. It's drying quite quickly because it's an evening time, and as you can see, sort of there's a bit of wind as well. So we'll start building up the shadows in the distant cliffs, and then we're going to gradually work across into getting those mid-tones and light shadows into the town and build those up gradually. So you can see we're building these darks in place, and I'm obviously going to put some more body into the trees around the town. That'll help to sort of bring out the highlights. And then I'm going to work my brush round to the foreground, so I'll gradually get the slope of the greens on the slope, give those colour change, and then work my way into the foreground. And then I'm going to stand back briefly and balance the town as a whole, just to make sure I've got the right balance of sort of lights and darks. Now it's all about building the darks into the town and capturing that light as the shadows drop over the hillside and drop away. And you can get a feeling for that because you can see even now the light is constantly changing. So in a way, I've got to just capture that moment. So I want to capture it with a little bit more light across the town than actually we've sort of got at this moment because it's disappearing away. But hopefully, you know, with a bit of care, we can achieve that. This next stage is all about really building up the shadows and working in the details, both the town and the cobble landing, and just carefully using a small brush, just dancing the brush through the painting and through to give the impression of detail without actually giving too much detail. The key is just to give the sufficient impression that there's enough for your eye to latch onto, and your eye then will magically determine the rest and pick out the detail without actually getting into the detail yourself. Once again, you can see the light is disappearing, but I'm trying to give the impression of the light as it was, and by just carefully, again, dropping the brush in, just giving the impression of those little finer parts, using a smaller brush, just to give those people walking on the seafront, boats and various bits on the cobble landing, I can just give the impression of those sufficiently for my eye to sort of pick them up as something that actually just sparkles in the painting. I'm also going to replicate this detail into the foreground with the yacht club area by putting some of the masts in place with a fine brush, and also applying some details and shades and little bits of suggestive detail again in the foreground. It's enough to be able to just capture the eye as and interpret that feeling of the actual whole yacht club with the yachts all sitting there. Now, the next thing I don't want to miss out is the reflection in the water just by the town, the effect of the town capturing on this very still sea. There is that little bit of water reflection. So what I'm going to do is just wet the paper and then just drop in some greys, probably using ultramarine and alizarin crimson with a bit of yellow ochre, just to just to create a range of greys and just gradually just float that into the sea. Also, I'm going to take this range of shadows and bring it into the whole painting and bring it down into the foreground, so you've got that feeling of light dropping off onto my right and casting these lovely shadows, which are going to create the effect of the mood and atmosphere that we're after. Now it's just a case of putting those final darks in, and hopefully we've captured the mood and atmosphere of an evening scene at Filey. Okay, so there we have it. We've battled the light. We're a little bit later, as we said, than we planned, and the light has left us a little bit, but nonetheless, I think we've got most of what we're after. I'm gonna probably tidy up the town a little bit when I get back, but other than that, I think I've got a lot of it. It's been a lovely evening, absolutely gorgeous. We're now gonna sort of pack up and get some fish and chips on the way back. I think that's our plan for the evening. But I hope you've enjoyed that. And obviously we'll have more planned, and we're going to do a lot more of these plein air sessions at one sort of another. In the meantime, if you like it, please don't forget to like and subscribe. It gets us picked up to a wider audience. And until next time, all I've got to say is enjoy, keep painting.